Hello and welcome to Falmouth Community Television. Today is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. It's 8 p.m. Polls in Falmouth closed. We're covering the 2020 presidential elections. Our coverage will include congressional, state, county, and possibly other regional elections. Fortunately, my co-anchor for this historic occasion is local newspaper columnist, author, political pundit, and fellow member of FCTV, Troy Clarkson. Welcome, Troy.
Jay, thank you so much. And as always, it's a pleasure to do this with you. This has become a tradition for you and me, and we are so thrilled to bring you live results here on FCTV. As Jay mentioned, of course, the presidential election has gotten most of the energy in the headlines, but there are several local races of interest that we will review with you tonight. We'll have some of the candidates for those local races here live on FCTV, so you can hear directly from those candidates. We'll hear from our town clerk, Michael Palmer, who's been hard at work for weeks now for this historic election. And Jay and I will offer commentary, as always, as the issues and the votes and the counting unfold. So Jay, this has been an election like no other. Because of the pandemic, of course, people have been voting. And here in Massachusetts, early voting started a few years ago. But this year, the early voting reached historic proportions. And so we may very well see when the town clerk comes on in a few minutes that we are at or near historic voting numbers here in Falmouth for a presidential election. So no matter which candidate you support, no matter your party or your philosophical bent, the good news is people today here in Falmouth are having their voices heard. And Jay, that's the best news we've heard in a while.
Well, you're absolutely right, Troy. So with 3 ways to vote, either early voting, by mail, or at your local precinct, it all wrapped up today at 8 p.m. I believe the mail-in ended on the 28th of October. But I wonder, Troy, let's take a look at start off by sort of getting the pulse of what's going on across the country, and then zero it in back into our area. What are you hearing?
Well, so I think obviously this has been a very contentious election nationwide. There has been
has this not happened to you before?
Strife and discontent from coast to coast, but generally, although we did hear rumors or we heard rumblings that there may be some difficulty at the polls, by and large, generally,
I heard that
here locally.
Did you hear that ding?
In Massachusetts.
I'm hearing it in here. I'm not.
Go nationwide. No,
I have it. It's coming on the laptop speaker.
So generally, I think things have gone pretty well.
Have any idea?
In long lines to vote, to exercise that right, and that's all pretty good news.
It is indeed. There was some concern across the country. The voters were concerned that something might unpleasant occur, and in fact, that's not the case at all. So let's zero in a little bit closer to us. Part of the things that we're going to be covering are the congressional. We know that our Congressman Bill Keating is running for re-election, and hopefully we'll be able to get some of those numbers in a little while. There's also the race for representatives for our 2 districts that crisscross Falmouth. So in fact, there are 2 ballots in Falmouth. One includes Representative Dylan Fernandez, and I believe those are precincts 1, 2, 5. Let me double check. 1, 2, 5, and 6.
1, 2, 5, and 6. You're correct. Yes.
And the second is for David Vieira. I believe this is his 6th or 7th run, the incumbent, and both are running unopposed.
Yes, they are. And I wrote about that in my column last week, Jay, as you know, and perhaps some of our viewers know, I write a weekly column in the Enterprise and have for more than a decade, offering opinion and thoughts on the local political and the local human interest scene. And one of the things I talked about in that column, Jay, was I believe that both Representative Dylan Fernandez and Representative David Vieira are unopposed for a reason. It's because they put people before party. The two of them work closely together. They work on the issues that are important to people here in Falmouth and throughout the rest of their district. Dylan's district also includes Nantucket and the 6 towns on Martha's Vineyard, and David represents Bourne and portions of Bourne and Mashpee, in addition to about half of Falmouth. But
That's right.
despite their political differences, their focus is the same, and that is on the people and the issues that are important here in Falmouth. And I think that's an important lesson as we begin to unfold and analyze tonight's results, that generally what I've seen over the last couple of decades here in Falmouth is the people vote for the people that represent the issues and what's important to them, and not necessarily along party lines. And that's a refreshing difference from what we see regionally and certainly nationally.
Wouldn't you consider that the entire Cape and Island delegation work very well together?
Without a doubt. I've often in my column called it the Cape Cod Party. Former Senator Vinnie DiMacedo was an excellent example of that, as someone who was a Republican, but worked closely with Democratic representatives. You see it throughout the Cape, and Cape Cod as a whole. The legislative delegation is a mix of Democrats and Republicans, but no ideologues, no people that stand alone and wave the flag, so to speak, of their leftness or their rightness or their redness or their blueness. It's a very purple approach, which I think is really important. And it's a good lesson for the rest of the Commonwealth to have our legislative delegation work on water quality and the environment and the local economy and all of those issues that don't know local borders, that don't know the line between Falmouth and Mashpee and Bourne. And so we're really fortunate, I think, to have a delegation that understands that and takes that message to Beacon Hill. And I think the fact that David and Dylan are unopposed is not only a testament to that, but a credit to how much they carry that out.
Indeed. When you mentioned former Senator Vinnie DiMacedo, that brings to mind that Susan Moran from Falmouth took that seat in May. So this is going to be her 3rd run for the same seat that she currently holds in the Senate for the Plymouth and Barnstable district. So let's talk about that race a bit.
So you're right. It really has been because the Senator DiMacedo left the seat. He actually to take a leadership position at Bridgewater State University. It left the seat vacant. So there was a special election to fill it, which Sue Moran won, and then of course a primary, and then now re-election for the same seat. That race, I think, has not seen the sort of harmony that we talked about a minute ago when we talked about how David Vieira and Dylan Fernandez work together. So Senator Moran will be on our show here in a few minutes to talk about some of the issues on which she has worked during her 100 days or so as a senator. But unfortunately, that race has been characterized by mischaracterizations, more indicative of how we've seen some of the national races go, where people attempt to brand candidates and their supporters and really put them in a very small box. And that's unfortunate. And we've seen a lot of that, I think, during this race for the Senate, particularly by Senator Moran's opponent. Now, to be clear, I write an opinion column in the Enterprise, and that's what I do. I'm not a reporter, so I am paid to share my opinion and have done so as it relates to that race. And I think that the disharmony in that race has been unfortunate because, as I mentioned in my column last week, I think Sue has proven that she works on both sides of the aisle and works on issues that are important for Cape Codders, not necessarily issues that are just important for Democrats or Republicans. And so,
And by contrast, I think you'll find in the congressional race for the ninth congressional district, it's been pretty quiet between Mr. Keating and his competitor, Kevin O'Connell.
yes, agreed. And, you know, Bill Keating has actually been someone who's been a frequent guest on many shows, including our Falmouth Cares Business Roundtable during the pandemic, right here
Right.
on FCTV. And I think he is another example of someone who works on issues that are important to the region, and it you know, is less brazenly political than we see other places in the nation. And so, you know, I think that race has been very quiet. I do expect, and I'm happy to predict, that it will be a very comfortable win for Representative Keating. I would expect that with the historic numbers of people going to the polls here in Massachusetts, that as an incumbent Democrat, Bill Keating will comfortably coast to a victory, but not just because of his party affiliation. You know, but because he is present in the district, he lives in nearby Bourne, but he is active in issues. You see him at events publicly, certainly pre-pandemic. He was present and available in the district. And so I think for that reason, and not necessarily because of the blueness of Massachusetts as a whole, he'll do very well in that race.
And then, of course, we've got on a more local level here regionally, we have the county commissioner race and also the Assembly of Delegate race as well. So at the county level, for the county commissioners, we have 4 competitors, 1 incumbent. And what are your thoughts there?
Well, so I think, why don't we get to that in just a minute, because we do have, as we spoke of just a minute ago, Senator Sue Moran is here in the Zoom waiting room here on FCTV. So why don't we bring in Senator
Let's do that.
and have a conversation with her about her 100 days as senator and about the race thus far. Senator Sue Moran, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Exciting day.
It is. So
Welcome.
not unlike traditionally where you know, you're out at the polls and waving to people as they go by, and this era of physical distancing. My friend Will Mebane from St. Barnabas Church likes to call it physical distancing, so that we remember we can be socially close but physically far apart. So tell us, Senator, what you've experienced today out there campaigning.
You know, the turnout is really unbelievable, and it's something that speaks well to our democracy, not only in Falmouth, but in my entire district, and for that matter, in the nation. I mean, we see a lot more young people. We see a lot of folks who just really are voting for the first time. We see there was sort of a lot of you know, out there in terms of the process, a lot of discussion, and I think it's a great thing. I think that's the best thing that can be said about this election so far.
I'd be curious to find out, Sue, what are you hearing in terms of the key issues of this demographic? For example, you mentioned the young voters that are coming out. What are they inquiring about? What are they looking for?
Well, you know, it's really primarily COVID related in terms of when am I going to be able to go back to school? If, for example, they might be college students that are on a part-time schedule, or maybe decided to do some sort of alternative for this semester because the experience is not quite the same. We have young working people who are trying to get some sort of consolation that their jobs are going to be there, that they'll be able to afford their rent, that their landlord won't have a financial issue with their mortgage. I mean, everything is such a domino effect with COVID, and not to mention the primary thing of our health. Young people are worried about their elders. They're worried about, their friends, and they want to be sure that everyone stays healthy through this flu season, and that we all get back to school and get back to work as quickly as we possibly can by following distancing rules, as Troy mentioned a minute ago.
Senator,
So
what are
this combination, go ahead,
sorry,
Troy.
go ahead.
Well, this combination between the pandemic and the economy, they sort of intertwine very closely. And yet here on the Cape, some of the other issues have to do with the blue economy and our environment. And I'd be curious to know who's bringing those topics up.
Well, it's in terms of the Senate work that I've done, I've been able to bring a lot of assets to the blue economy, in the hope that folks who may have lost jobs, for example, in food service or hotel industry, can pivot to jobs that are newly created through the state funding. A lot of folks in Falmouth, we've got the greatest minds in terms of ocean science and the science of our environment all around us. Those are things that I think it's going to be a silver lining from the pandemic, that there'll be more development, more clean air work. A lot of things that we've been working on for a long time, I think will get even more priority.
Great. Troy.
Senator, one of the things we were talking about before you came on was the general approach of the delegation here in Falmouth and on the Cape, and really that it's what I've often called the Cape Cod Party, and not necessarily a partisan approach, and that your 100 days as senator have really fulfilled that same theme. You've been able to work with Republicans and Democrats, both here on the Cape and the local delegation, and on Beacon Hill, even on days when it's a virtual hill. And that really stands in contrast to the race for re-election, because your opponent hasn't always shared that sort of collegial and bipartisan approach.
Absolutely. And even before I was this district senator, I worked a lot with the delegation as a Falmouth Select Board member and as a member of the Assembly of Delegates. And I have to tell you, it's really rare. You have Tim Whalen, for example, a Republican, Dave Vieira, Republican. We all support each other in terms of what the best thing for the Cape is. My colleague, Senator Sear, took me under his wing the minute I was elected, showed me some ropes for a quick springboard start. Representative Peake, I mean, she is just an absolute scholar and knows the ins and outs like no one else. Rep Fernandez, where, we are friends, see each other around town all the time and talk, none of us in the delegation miss a minute, even, if it's just a friendly circumstance, to talk about the issues that are important to the Cape. So that's been one of the most enjoyable things that I've been able to participate in, even more as your senator.
And so tell us, tonight is election night. I'm suspecting it's a little more difficult to get a feel for things when they're on a small screen rather than live and in person. But how are you feeling about re-election, and how has the support been in your district?
Sure. Well, not taking anything for granted, and we worked really, really hard through this election, notwithstanding being in a pandemic, but the pandemic started during the special and we were successful there. There is a lot of optimism. I've been getting calls all day, sort of encouraging and you really worked hard and, looks like it's working out, hope it's working out. So I'm on the edge of my seat in the bottom line here, but very optimistic because I just generally am.
Have you made any inroads into the committee structure of the Senate What are you interested in? Where have you been pushed, pulled, or encouraged to take a piece of?
Sure. Well, I've been working on the housing committee as well as transportation. Those are two of, the areas that I've been working on for a long time, 5 or 6 years in local government. And then the just committees that will allow me to look at Open Cape, for example, and things that will really, bring us technologically closer. So those are the three committees that fit really well with where I hope to have the opportunity to bring our economy as we get healthy out of COVID to really hone all of those opportunities that that technology and just having folks in the area have good affordable housing and clean energy transportation. So those are really important to me.
Excellent. Excellent.
Excellent. Well, Senator, we really appreciate you coming on tonight. We wish you the best in tonight's election. We really thank you for being that bipartisan, collaborative senator that we certainly need. We're going to transition to bring in the candidates for county commissioner now, but would happily give you the chance to offer a couple of thoughts as we go to our next guest, and sincerely thank you. Because people are physically distant, having the opportunity to hear from their elected officials in forums like this is truly critically important. So
Absolutely.
you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. I always enjoy speaking with both of you. But this, out of any election that I've been involved in, is probably the most important because there have been a lot of challenges, a lot of scary things with the pandemic, and people are, their patience have been tried, their health has been tried, their financial health has been tried, and I think the results of this election should put in front, most mindful, that we do best when we all work together. We really do best as a community when we have open communication and when we look at challenges from the other person's perspective. So that's what I'm looking forward to going ahead, and I'm going to be watching FCTV. So thanks both of you for doing this, and thank you to FCTV to bring it on home.
Best of luck.
Thank you, Jay.
And now, Jay, as we mentioned at the outset of the show, there is a race for county commissioners. There are 4 candidates for 2 seats, 1 incumbent, very well known both to you and me and to our viewers on FCTV, chose not to run for re-election. So before we bring on the candidates, we probably should give a shout out to the decades of honorable public service by outgoing County Commissioner Pat Flynn. She has been a dear friend to Falmouth, a dear friend to me and you, and really represents all that's good with government. And so thank you to Pat Flynn for your years of dedicated service.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. Pat has been a real stalwart.
And so there is 1 vacant seat on the county commission. And also incumbent county commissioner Ron Beatty is running for re-election. He has chosen not to come on FCTV tonight, but the 3 remaining candidates, Sheila Lyons, Mark Forrest, and Abe Kasparian, have all agreed to come here live on Falmouth Community Television to talk about their candidacy and to talk about that race, Jay. So our first of the 3 candidates joining us is Sheila Lyons. So we welcome Sheila to FCTV. And as she comes on, we should note that following Sheila's visit with us, we will have Mark Forrest and then, of course, Abe Kasparian join us live here on FCTV.
I think, and I believe in welcoming Sheila to the station. It would be appropriate to mention that she had served in the capacity as a county commissioner in the past. So she's not a stranger to the process or through the seat. There she is.
Here I am, and it's so good to see both of you. I can't believe it. Jay,
Hi,
how are
good
you?
to see you.
Jay, it's been a long time. It's so
It
good to
has
see
been.
you. And Troy, it is so good to see you as well.
Thank you, you as well. And so welcome, Sheila. So we really wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about your candidacy for county commissioner. But I'm going to ask you to hold that thought just for a second, because we've been waiting since the poll. You're welcome to stay with us, but we've been waiting since the poll closed to have our town clerk, Michael Palmer, on, and he's broken away from his busy work counting votes just to provide us a quick update. So Sheila, stay with us, please. But would like to welcome Town Clerk Michael Palmer on to the show here on FCTV to get a quick update. Mr. Clerk, welcome. Thank you. We know you've been working tirelessly for weeks now in this unprecedented COVID impacted voting season. So welcome, and tell us about the turnout in Falmouth today.
Hi, Troy, Jay, and Sheila. Yep, it was an election that we've never lived through in our lifetime. You know, we used to go to the polls on election day and cast a vote and go through a tabulator, but now we've been casting ballots for the last 2 months and casting ballots in person for the last 2 weeks. So it's really been unprecedented what we're going through, and we've never seen it in our lifetime. And Jay and Troy, I sent over some of the early voting results to Bob and Jeff there, so you may want to grab them from them and look at them. Some very interesting results that came through. It was kind of a strange election day. In some precincts, it was very, very quiet. Precinct 1 in particular, but so many people voted early at Precinct 1 that there wasn't much of a line. But in other precincts, in particular, 8 and 9, which is out in Hatchville, and Precinct 7, which is in Walkpoint, and Precinct 4, which is in East Falmouth, there were lines the entire day, right up until almost the close of polls at 8. At one point at 7 o'clock, there was 75 people in line at Walkpoint. So it was interesting to see that the lines were there all day, and I guess you'd expect that from a presidential election. So. The numbers are going to be up in the mid 80s, I think, for a turnout. I'd like to see when the results are finally in, what that comes to. I think it's going to be an overwhelming turnout. So I don't know if you want some highlights from these results, or you just want to take a look at them yourself a little bit later.
I'm just opening up, and pardon me for not looking at the screen. I'm just opening them up on my phone here. But yeah, that would be wonderful, Mike. You could give us some of those early results. But just to confirm what you said, we're hearing that the overall turnout here in Falmouth was upwards in excess of 80%. Is that correct?
Yeah, I expect it to be up around 85% when all is said and done. Just remarkable. You normally get a higher turnout for presidential elections, but I think with the expansion of early voting by mail and early voting by in person, people really took advantage in the atmosphere in the country. People really wanted to vote and have their voice be heard by voting. So it's pretty remarkable what the turnout will be here. So
That's for sure. So yeah, we'd love, and I would like to apologize to our viewers. We're getting some feedback. We're trying to track that down. In this world of Zoom communication, sometimes it's an imperfect technological world, so we're doing our best to track that down. Apologize for any of that feedback, but please listen intently, because these are your first opportunity here in Falmouth to get early voting unofficial results from the town clerk. So go ahead, Michael. Thank you.
These are the unofficial results just from early voting, nothing on election day. And I'll jump right to the county commissioner's race, because we have somebody that's particularly interested in that. And Sheila, you actually had 8,300 votes. Mark Forrest said 7,800, and I'm rounding these off. And the third place finisher is 41. So you almost doubled Ron Beatty's vote total just from early voting. It does not the election, what happened on election day. An interesting fact, for the presidential election, Biden almost 3-1 over Trump. But on election day, more people voted for Trump, very small amount in precinct 1. I think there were 284 for Trump and 177 for Biden, and that's off the top of my head, so I'm not looking at those figures. So it was interesting on election day to see people come out. Trump voters came out on election day versus early voters overwhelmingly voted for Biden over Trump. Markey obviously won handily. Bill Keating won handily. And the other one of interest probably to all of us is Susan Moran. We're just talking in Falmouth, almost 3-1, 10,662 to 3,658. So, and these are just Falmouth numbers. Obviously, that's a pretty big district, but that's a lot of votes, as Troy, you know, to overcome in any one town, almost 6,000 votes to overcome. So that'd be a tough for Mr. McMahon to overcome, I think, throughout the district. So.
Excellent.
And I know that's just highlighting what the results that we did have come in. I'll go to the questions because those are kind of interesting too. The right to repair, overwhelmingly 11,000 to 3,100 passed. And ranked choice voting, which was very, very close. No's were 7,700 and yeses were 6,300. So that was very, very close in Falmouth. So it'd be interesting to see what happens, because that could flip throughout the rest of the state, depending on how the rest of the state votes on that. So that'd be interesting, even though it was defeated in Falmouth, to see what will happen in the rest of the state.
So, well, thank you very much, Michael. So interesting, that dynamic that you mentioned about the early voting versus the in-person voting. What we were hearing from election analysts nationwide was that that people that early voted were expected to trend a little bluer than those that showed up on election day. So those results here in Falmouth really bear that out.
Quite overwhelmingly, yes.
That was the last one.
And the opposite on election day, although precinct 1 had a very low turnout today, but it had an unbelievable turnout for early voting, where some of the other ones they were talking about, there were lines constantly. The East Falmouth Hatchville area, which is notoriously a lower turnout in the town, had lines the entire day. I was pretty amazed by all that. So interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the results.
And that's really the good news out of this election. This is both Jay and Michael, obviously. And Jay and I, Michael said this before you came on, regardless of who people support or what their political party is, the fact that we had this extraordinary 80% plus turnout here really bodes well for the democratic process. And obviously the fact that you're able to join us shortly after the polls closed tells me that the election went fairly smoothly and that there were no major issues. And so those are really the success stories for today, that the election went well, there were no major problems. You're able to report the preliminary results to us, half hour after the polls closed. So it just shows that democracy works here in Falmouth.
You know, Troy and Michael, this is an appropriate time to say thank you to all of the poll workers for the success that we're seeing in our community at the election, for this election. They've done a sterling job, and I'm sure you'd agree.
Absolutely. We had some very hardworking, and I had some very hardworking individuals that supported me throughout this early voting process, which was interesting. It's a shift from voting on election day to doing mail-in ballots for a month and a half. So very interesting shift in the focus on how we conduct an election. So.
Well, that's good news. Absolutely.
What a difference a year makes, Mr. Clerk. I'm told that a year ago you were actually in Baltimore watching the New England Patriots.
Yeah, that was a heart-wrenching loss also there, but yes, indeed, that was quite a time with a great group of people. We go on a yearly trip, and I'm kind of missing that this year, being in the situation that we're in. So better.
You're trying to inflict a little damage there.
What's that?
I said, was Troy trying to inflict a little damage?
No. Just actually trying to find a bright spot in these dour days of this pandemic with some good memories. So, Michael, thank you for coming on and sharing this information with us. What we'd like to do is talk to a few of the candidates, but bring you back at the end of the show, if that's okay. Just to
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna jump off, and when I do have some maybe final results, maybe I'll come back in and see what I can give you.
That would be great. The Town Clerk, Michael Palmer, live from Town Hall. Thank you and your team for all of your outstanding efforts today and in the weeks leading up to this concluding day in the election process.
Great, we'll talk to you soon.
So there you go, Jay. Let's just round it up and say 85% of voters chose to go to the polls, not only today, but leading up to today here in Falmouth.
That's very encouraging.
That bodes well for democracy.
Does indeed.
So we're happy now to have back County Commissioner candidate Sheila Lyons, and hot off the presses, Sheila, you heard it first here on Falmouth Community Television. You are, at least with the early voting results, they're counting the election day results now, but with the early voting results of the 4 candidates, you are in first place and drew about 8,300 votes here in
I
Falmouth.
have a few friends here with me, so they're very happy to hear that. We have to keep it down, so there's 4 friends with me.
I knew you were gonna do it.
Well, but you know, that's great. That shows sort of the new normal in terms of campaigning and election night parties. I mean, I never dreamt I'd be on any election night seated in my kitchen, because I'm usually someplace.
That's right.
And so this is a very new experience for us. But you must feel pretty good about those results. I mean, you do have the experience of having been a county commissioner before, so you're well known to the voters here in Falmouth. But nonetheless, been out of office for a few years, so that has to feel pretty good.
I have to tell you, it is really an honor. I'm very humbled by the whole thing, and people are laughing here because they're saying, you know, but it's an amazing thing that people, I know I've had very core supporters, but to have this outpouring, it's been a wonderful thing. And I'm going to kill my friends over here because they're all jabbing at me right now. So that's why I'm if I sound stunted, but it is a great thing. And I love Falmouth. And I was just saying, like, Falmouth to me is like one of the most intellectual towns, and you know, they're very into voting, and to have that vote, I'm very honored by.
If I'm not mistaken, Sheila, didn't you serve just before you came on? We were saying thank you to Pat Flynn for her years of service. Didn't you also serve with Pat on the commission?
I served with Pat. We ran together, and
Right.
I was the new kid on the block. And Pat came in, and that was an experience of elections, because Pat came in and Falmouth loved Pat Flynn. They protected Pat Flynn, as you know, both of you, Troy, and it was always a bullet vote. So I worked very hard that first campaign in that primary, and I came in and I was able to hold my own because we were with 2 other, there was a five-person Democratic primary, my first election. And Pat just got 12,000 votes right off the bat because everybody, but we served together, we worked together, and we worked together just like Mark and I are on that subsequent re-election campaign. So we did a lot of work together, and we went around telling people, you know, if you really want something to happen, don't bullet vote, vote for the both of us. And I hope that's happening tonight with Mark and I, because it really does make a difference. If people will know you, Jay, and they'll vote for you, but they don't know Troy. So I'm just going to give my vote to Jay. And really, it's important that there's 2 seats open, and you know that there's going to be a good candidate in that second seat. So that was the strategy this time. It was what the strategy was in our re-election and in our generals. And to work with Mary Pat was she was a mentor, because I was new. She said, now you're going to learn a new language. It's called government language. I remember when we first came in together. So she was
I want
great.
to congratulate you on a very well run race.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
You kept it very high class. I like that.
Well, I just want to say it would never have happened. It would never have happened if the town committees and the Democratic Party and all the people who have been working tirelessly across the Cape. I'm part of a movement, and I'm proud to be part of that movement. And I thank every single person in Falmouth for the work they've done.
Bravo. Troy?
Well, thank you. And Sheila, I will just echo the kind things you said about Pat, and Jay and I did speak of her briefly before, but you and I were elected on the same day in 1993 as selectmen here in Falmouth. And
Right.
there are a few people in my lifetime on Cape Cod who have had a broader, more impactful career in politics than Pat Flynn. She really has defined public service for most of the last quarter century. And so
Yes.
it's great now that you can continue that service should these numbers hold Cape-wide. So
I will hold Pat in my heart because she did understand what I understood about our country and about how things should be. And she really had she had a good sensibility about her, about how to go and when to hold them and when to fold them. And I learned a lot from Pat. So
speaking of opponent or candidate, I should say, Mark Forrest, we have him in the waiting room. He's going to join us in just a minute, but we will give you an opportunity to say a final thank you to the voters of Falmouth for strongly supporting you, and maybe give us some thoughts on how you see the rest of the Cape shaping up.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that the Democratic wave goes through, and I wish the best to Mike Dever, and I wish the best to Josh Mason. But we are sort of, and of course, Markey and Keating and all of the candidates that are running, but we are sort of the regional debate. We're the regional seat. So it's been a pleasure to work with Mark. Mark and I have worked together since I was on the CIDC. I was just a person trying to get people elected, and he was Delahunt's guy. And so, but I was always very involved and very interested in what was going on. I'm gonna kill the people that are here with me, but they're good friends, Troy, and you know them. But they're driving me crazy right now. They're all goading me, but and they know Mark. So you tell Mark that there's good feelings here from the Omens and the Bacons and all the other people here in Wellfleet. But it's been a pleasure to work with Mark, and I actually think that we will get things done, and we will be able to do good things for the Cape.
All right. Well, we will let you get back to the festivities.
I know. I actually don't want to. I'd rather be here with you, Roy.
Well, it sounds like it's a lot more fun there than here.
It is, but they're driving me crazy. So this is what I
We
get.
wish you the best. We thank you very
And
much.
again, thank you to Falmouth, and you will not be disappointed. I really do honor the trust. So.
County Commissioner candidate and former Commissioner, it looks as though perhaps future Commissioner Sheila Lyons, we thank you for your service and thank you for joining us here tonight on FCTV.
May God be with us tonight, Troy.
All right, take care.
Well, she's celebrating.
Yes, well, yes, indeed, and that's okay. Based on the early results here in Falmouth, it's going to be a happy night for Sheila Lyons. And now joining us live here on FCTV is another candidate for County Commissioner, Mark Forrest. Mark, before I officially welcome you, I will tell you if you were able to hear our Town Clerk, Mike Palmer, provide early results. These are early voting results only. They're still tabulating the in-person results from today, but the early results here in Falmouth are very positive for Mark Forrest. Some 8,300 votes for Sheila Lyons and 7,800 for you here, Mark, in Falmouth. So welcome to live election coverage here in FCTV. Happy to have you with us. And those numbers must make you feel pretty good.
That sounds great. I'm assuming we're the top two vote getters, right?
Yes, that's
Troy?
That's correct.
That's great. Who came out third and fourth on the ballot? And what were their numbers?
Michael was not able to give us numbers on Abe Kasparian. Ron Beatty was down around 4,100. You were at 7,800. Sheila at 83, and Mr. Kasparian in the middle there, and we're waiting for him to provide those results. He was rattling off results pretty rapidly, and so when we get them, we'll give them to you in detail. But
That's
it looks
great.
like a comfortable several thousand vote margin for both you and Sheila.
Oh, that's terrific. That's great news. Well, let me just say thanks for having us on. It's good to see you, Troy. It's good to see you, Jay. This is a big night.
Well, Mark, I followed your campaign on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I want to compliment you for your tone, the decorum that you maintained. It was excellent, very well run. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
So tell us about your campaign and your feelings this evening.
Well, it's you're getting numbers before I am. I'm sort of watching the TV to try to get a sense of what's happening nationally, like I think a lot of people are. I think, quite frankly, I'm exhausted, as I'm sure a lot of folks are right now that have been campaigning in this election cycle. I've been out all day and it's been cold outside, so I still haven't gotten the chill out of my system yet. But in spite of that, I'm just been excited by the response. We've had tremendous response from one end of the Cape to the other. And obviously those numbers bode well in Falmouth. Falmouth is an incredibly important town if you're running Cape wide. And I think the Falmouth voters are very smart, they're very sophisticated, and they demand something of substance from their candidates. And I honestly think that the support that I received in Falmouth this time around was incredible, and I very much appreciate it. So I definitely want to thank people in Falmouth for stepping up and helping out. It was a great effort, and I very much appreciate it.
Have you gotten any feedback from any of the other 14 other towns?
I've gotten unofficial results in Brewster. I was told that Sheila and I did very, very well there. It's sort of like the two of us are kind of neck and neck, within 1,000 votes of each other. The last time I ran, there were a lot of bullet votes, and so I think the feeling going into this after the primary was that we're going to need to find a way to work together, because there are many people that are actually voting. They vote in this race thinking that there's only one vote that they have. And so we need to really work hard to remind people that they can vote for two candidates. And, Sheila's been a commissioner before. I haven't. I tried last time, but like I said, there was a lot of bullet voting, a lot of people only thinking they could just vote for one candidate. And since I was at the bottom of the ballot, that hurt me a little bit. But we've been much more visible. We've been much more aggressive. And like I said, the response in Falmouth and in other towns has been terrific. The unofficial numbers in Brewster are pretty strong. I can't give you numbers specifically, but I just got off the phone before I got on, and I was told that we did very well. Sheila and I came in 1 and 2 in Brewster, and the numbers were very strong there. So, so far, knock on wood, so far so good for us.
And it looks to be that way. Mirror here on the other end of the Cape here in Falmouth, Mark. Campaigning in the time of a pandemic where you have very limited actual contact with voters must have been certainly something new, but difficult. Talk to us just a little bit about how it was different campaigning this time around.
Well, it's very frustrating, because what you want to do is you want to be able to meet with people and shake hands. Campaigns, at least for a race like this, you really have to get around from one end of the Cape to the other. And that was just difficult to do. The only way you could really do it was by Zoom or on the phone. And that was challenging. And in what happens is there's just a lot of people you just don't have the opportunity to meet or see, particularly like Republicans or even independents. A lot of these Zoom meetings are based on organizations you try to saddle up to or connect with. And in a race like this, I'm not complaining too much. I mean, you're only meeting with Democrats, but the reality is that there are a lot of independents on the Cape, and I believe, you know, my candidacy it not only appeals to Democrats but also independents as well. And to not be able to have direct contact with independent voters was a bit of a challenge. So it's tough. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And then the other thing is that you're not just the limitations, but you're also dealing with people who, I mean, a large percentage of the people that live on Cape Cod are at risk of contracting, you know, COVID. And so if you find yourself in a setting, even if people are socially distanced, there's so much energy and attention in making sure that everybody's properly masked and socially distant that it becomes a bit of a challenge to even be heard. I've done a number of events outdoors, and that's just very, very challenging. Although
Sure.
I like being outdoors, but like I said, the biggest problem was just the inability to have direct contact with people.
So one question for you before we break, Mark. We do have other candidates in the race to chat with, but we want to give you the opportunity to answer this important question for the people here in Falmouth. Should the numbers continue to trend positively in your favor, and it certainly looks like they will, what's the number one thing that you hope to accomplish in the next 4 years as a county commissioner?
Well, there are a number of things that I'd like to work on and accomplish, but I think the most important thing that we have to do is to find more ways in which we can help people dealing with COVID, dealing with this pandemic, whether that's helping healthcare providers get access to the equipment that they need, helping people get access testing that's affordable, reliable with quick results, finding ways to help businesses stay open or get open safely. You know, I know of people that have certainly their businesses have gone under because they just can't survive the challenges here. So I think the county, the more it can be a resource and help assemble resources to help individuals, to help families, to help small businesses, and to make sure that we're reaching out in every community. Falmouth, obviously, very, very important, and there's a lot of concern there. So I see us playing a more active role in helping each of our towns, each of our communities sort of weather the storm and help as many survive it and get through it. I've lost friends, I've lost family members in this crisis, and I've been telling people that it's real, it's serious, and it's something that we need to really make a priority.
Indeed. Well, we thank you very much. Thank you for your hard work. And as Jay mentioned, thank you for keeping this campaign upbeat and professional and really showing an example of what good politics and good campaigning is all about. So we wish you the best in the rest of tonight's race, Mark. We thank you for joining us, and onward we go.
Yes, that's great. Well, thanks for having me on, and it's always great to see you, Troy. It's great to see you again, Jay. All the best to you, and let's keep in touch.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
County Commission candidate Mark Forrest. Jay, before we bring the other candidate, Abe Kasparian, on, it's important to note that Mark's public service has been ongoing for more than 30 years. I first met Mark when he was a district aide for Congressman Gary Studs some 30 years ago. So he really has been dedicated to public service for a very, very long time. And now at this stage in his career, he's giving back. And he also serves as a selectman in the town of Yarmouth. And so really is one of those people like Pat Flynn we mentioned, who has given so much of themselves over the years to this community we call Cape Cod.
And I met Mark when I first moved here in 2000 as the legislative aide to Delahunt.
Right.
And so I've watched Mark over these 20 years, and his legislative experience is extensive.
Indeed, we are very fortunate to have some great candidates with just a wide range of experience running for office locally and regionally. And we have another one of those ready to come on the show right now, right here on FCTV. County Commission candidate Abe Kasparian, and we're happy to welcome Abe to Falmouth Community Television to talk about his candidacy for County Commissioner. Mr. Kasparian, welcome. Okay to call you Abe?
That's absolutely fair.
Okay, so we welcome you here to FCTV. We've had two of the other candidates on here with us, Sheila Lyons and Mark Forrest. Early voting results in Falmouth have been tabulated. They're still tabulating the day of results. But with those early votes counted, it looks like you are in the third position out of the four candidates. What were your expectations here in Falmouth, and what do those results tell you in terms of the race on the rest of the Cape?
Well, I knew that it was going to be a very difficult situation for me. First of all, I'm an independent candidate. I'm not backed by a party, either Republican or Democrat. So I knew I had a couple of strikes against me going into the race. Plus, what I brought to the table was the abolishment of county government. And I think right now that people are concerned about change. And I was talking about a pretty dramatic change. So that I think factors into most people's thoughts process going into looking at their form of government. We're dealing with COVID-19, which is a panic situation for most people to think about. And to look at change as dramatic as I was looking at, even though I came up with and have a lot of fantastic, I think, ideas, which would stimulate a great amount of conversation on how we run county government as we move forward, I thought that might be a little too much. And that might be the factor. I'm sorry.
It's not often, Abe, that someone runs for an office on the platform of abolishing the office for which they're running. So I can understand your position that did make your candidacy a challenge. Have you found that message has resonated for you in your travels, both virtually and in person here on the Cape?
Well, I personally received the nomination. So I interviewed and met with 900 people. I collected 900 signatures. And that was prior to COVID really becoming a real topic of concern for most people. But I got to talk to them, and most people that I talked with, nearly all of them, did not know what a county commissioner did, didn't even know what the county, how it functioned as a government. And my whole concept was to return $15 million back to our individual communities. That's what I've been running on. And during that period of time of the 4 years to create the legislation to abolish the county government, that we would take on certain issues that I thought were very important that could be done at a county level that could be carried over into what I wanted to create or hope to create after meeting with the people, going into the communities and getting out of the Superior Courthouse where the county commissioners currently meet, and go into the communities in the evening and talk directly with the people like I did when I was collecting nominations. And so I got a sense that one, people don't know what county government does, and two, that they did feel comfortable with seeing the money being returned back into their own municipalities to do things that aren't being done at the county level. And quite frankly, I've talked to a number of the delegates that oversee the county, or at least give their opinion of how the county should be run. And there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of problems with the county, although very subtle, but there still is that extra layer of antiquated government that I don't think we need. But like I said earlier, the COVID-19 puts a lot of people in a stressful situation, and change at this point is probably very difficult for people to review.
Abe, I'd like to make an observation. We have another
Yes,
Kasparian in the town of Falmouth who is recognized. He's the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Michael Kasparian. I think it's fair to say that there is no relation between you and he.
No, there isn't, but I wish you would have given me some support.
Name recognition, right? So Abe,
Yes,
my question to you is, if you don't prevail and find a seat on the commission, what are you going to be pursuing in other political terms?
Well, my goal is not to pursue any other goals. My look at the county commissioner job was to do one thing: return money back into the town of Yarmouth, have it also be returned into the other communities within the county, maybe create a one beach sticker for the residents of Cape Cod, do something for the veterans on Cape Cod, because I work with Steve Azaros a lot on the Big Nick ride. And Steve, I think, is going to make a tremendous, tremendous state representative that'll represent Cape Cod. So I don't have any political aspirations beyond this. I'm not a politician. I'm not a career politician. I'm not going to look for the next job and so on and so forth. I find the county position to be utilized as a political welfare system for those politicians looking to retire and build up their retirement funds. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to end it.
And so my last question to you is,
Yes, sir.
those 900 signatures that you got, where did they come from? Were they Cape wide, or was there an area that you selected?
No, they were Cape wide. I would go to the different Stop and Shops, primarily after I got off work. I would go and to Hyannis or to Yarmouth or to Dennis. I would go out as far as Mashpee and collect signatures there. I got a cross section of what I felt Cape Cod was offering me from the citizenry to get an idea of where they stood. I gave out a pamphlet, some of my ideas of what I wanted to do, and I felt comfortable with them signing my nomination papers to get me on the ballot to at least, and this is what I told everybody: let me get on the ballot so we can talk about the issues and raise some good intellectual conversations about how we do things on the Cape, and is there a reason to make it change?
So as it relates to veterans, they can use all the support they can get.
Yes, and
So I thank you for that.
I have to say that my concept of giving handicap vets either mental handicap or physical handicap came directly from Steve Azaros when he created the situation at the Sandy Neck in Sandwich. He allowed the vets to get onto the beach as a way of, aside from wind therapy, there's other types of therapy to assist with vets and their problems that they bring home because of what they've gone through, the trauma they suffered. So I said, why don't we create a county beach sticker that's for a veteran who lives on Cape Cod, and that beach sticker is for free? Because anytime I recognize that there's a veteran that I come across, either by his cap or by a license plate, I always thank that veteran for their service, because they allow me the freedom to do what I'm doing here tonight. Even though I'm not going to win the race, I still had the opportunity to participate within the democracy that we so dearly love and appreciate. And those veterans gave that to me. So I thank them. But sometimes for me, when I say thank you to a vet, it seems hollow. There's nothing substantive behind it other than my appreciation for that person. So I said to myself, couldn't the county come up with a beach sticker that would be recognized all over every beach in the 15 counties and give that to them as just a little small reward? And that was one of the things that I wanted to put forward. And actually, the other commissioners think that the other commissioner candidates also think that that's a good idea. And I hope and pray that what they will do is take my ideas and bring it forward in the county.
All right. Well, Abe, we do thank you. Speaking of willingness to serve, we thank you for your willingness to serve, your dedication, and your willingness to put your name and yourself out there and offer your candidacy up. We wish you the best in the rest of the results tonight. And thank you for joining us here live on Falmouth Community Television.
Well, I thank you very much for everything that you've done to be able to bring the issues to your listeners, and I think it's a valuable thing that you do. And I appreciate all the courtesies and extensions that you've given me throughout this process.
All right. Well, County Commission candidate Abe Kasparian, we thank you very much for joining us, and you're always welcome here on FCTV.
Thank you very much.
So Jay, there you have it. Three candidates with very different approaches. To repeat it for our folks that are watching at home tonight, the early voting results here in Falmouth for the county commissioner's race: Sheila Lyons, approximately 8,300 votes; Mark Forrest, 7,800; Abe Kasparian drawing the third position; and incumbent Ron Beatty, who did not join us here on FCTV tonight, bringing up the rear with 4,100 votes. Of course, Ron Beatty has been a very controversial candidate during his 4 years as a commissioner, really emulating some of the worst behavior we've seen on the national level, with the sort of Twitter insults and outrageous behavior that has come, unfortunately, to define much of our politics. And so this vote, at least here in Falmouth, is a most certain and deliberate rebuke to that kind of behavior, Jay. There is another county race that's on tonight's ballot, and that is for the legislative body for Barnstable County, the Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates. There are three candidates for one seat, the seat that was vacated by Sue when she became the senator. The selectmen did convene and appoint someone to fill that seat, someone well known to Falmouth voters and to the folks here on FCTV. That incumbent who is running for a full election to that seat is with us tonight. So I'd like to welcome current Assembly delegate and member of the Falmouth Select Board, Doug Brown, to our show here on FCTV.
Wonderful.
There you are, Doug.
Hey,
Welcome
guys.
to FCTV's live election night coverage. We welcome you and thank you for your patience in staying with us. We've been visiting with the candidates up and down the ballot, and we're happy to have you here to discuss your candidacy for Assembly of Delegates.
Thank you, Troy. I've been enjoying watching the show from the other room.
Hi, Doug.
Hey, Jay, how you doing?
Well, so you're familiar with the whole Zoom process?
Oh,
You
yeah.
engage in it at least once a week,
Yes, I do.
and for long, extended periods of time.
Yes, we do. Yes.
So, Doug, obviously your willingness to give back is well known to Falmouth residents. You've been on the select board for a while now, and outside of that, volunteer your time for many different organizations. You really exemplify what it means to give back to the community. Tell us why take an already pretty full plate and add a regional elected office to that resume of yours?
Well, you know, when Sue was running for Senate, she was asking me if I would fill in if she got elected, and I said I would. And so just started from there. And the other board members said okay, and appointed me to do the unexpired term that Sue had left behind when she did get elected. And you know, once I got involved with it, I really enjoyed participating in the county government. I've learned a lot about it. It's a great educational experience to learn about how our county government serves our whole Cape Cod area. It's really a ton of services that are not provided in a lot of other counties. So it's pretty impressive.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that point up, Doug, because one of the candidates for county commissioner that we had on just before you was actually advocating for abolishing county government. And along the trail in my career, I actually served as a county administrator for Plymouth County many years ago. And even back then, Barnstable County was really held as one of the more relevant and helpful county governments in the entire Commonwealth because of the scope and the breadth of services that it provides. And so it really does provide a tremendous array of services to the towns for a pretty good price.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize it. You know, a lot of people know that the county has a dredge, and they know a few things that the county does, you know, provides the courthouse and so forth. But they don't realize that, like when COVID was hitting and our health department was shorthanded, they provided additional help to come down and back us up in our health department. And they do that all across the Cape whenever there's a need. And we recently appointed a food coordinator to organize the 32 different food pantries on Cape Cod, because, you know, one food pantry might have too much of one thing and not enough of another. And so now we have this network of sharing. So there's a lot of services that go unnoticed, but it's really important work.
Well,
And the Cape Cod Commission itself is one of those branches of government under the of the county also.
Yes, yeah, and they're
Very
doing a lot of
important
very
agency.
important work of regional planning and gauging the actual overall health and condition of the Cape all the time. They did a study recently on businesses that are affected by COVID, and you know, the results are a little disappointing. How many businesses are really stressed right now? And we're going to do one more. We're going to do one more round of survey here in the late fall and try to figure out what the projections are for the likelihood of success for as many businesses as they can poll. But right now, there's a lot that are looking like they're on the edge, so it's really scary.
And so having that that regional support, whether it's really just the sort of help that you mentioned for towns, but also knowing that there is support there. I know there's been some talk about actually even providing some small business grants. And so in your travels, have you been out there campaigning for this? I know campaigning in the age of COVID has been difficult, but what are you hearing out there from your constituents?
Well, you know, a friend of mine just had to close his restaurant because, you know, it was bar 3 there, and, you know, he just couldn't make it. He was doing great for the last couple of years, but this year his restaurant didn't suit itself well to outside dining, and it was a kind of a closed space without a lot of windows. So his business really suffered. So he was the first casualty that I know personally. And I'm really fearful that there's going to be quite a few more, but I don't hear a lot of people saying that that's going to happen because they don't usually want to show their hand until they fold.
Indeed. So this has been a relatively quiet campaign for the Assembly of Delegates. I know there are 2 other candidates, neither of whom chose to come on here on FCTV tonight. But I think locally that it certainly it has been marked by cordial and I think upbeat and a professional campaign.
I think so too. Yeah, you know, there's no bad blood between myself or the other 2 candidates. I applaud them for being involved and, you know, getting a little interest in county government. I mean, the more the better. You know, I think there should be competition for every seat on every race. That would make you know, that would make everybody work harder and do a better job.
And of course, the county commissioners run with a partisan label attached because that's just how the county government is constructed. But the Assembly of Delegates is a nonpartisan office. And so you have the ability to really emulate what we talked about earlier in the show, Doug, and that is much like you handle the office of a member of the select board. It's not about red or blue or Republican or Democrat. It's about serving the people of Falmouth, and in terms of the Assembly of Delegates, the entire Cape Cod 15 towns. And so I'm guessing that approach, that nonpartisan issues-based approach, better suits your approach to government.
I feel like it does because I'm not affiliated with either party, and I just feel like affiliations, when you're at this local level, it's more of a volunteer position, and you know, I think that party affiliations may hinder your ability to function, you know, honestly. So I'm fine with not being affiliated with any party. It's much easier for me.
And as we like to call it, really, it's the Cape Cod Party. It's when elected officials like Doug and Sheila and Mark and Pat Flynn come together really for the benefit of the communities they serve. We should, Doug, the county commissioner's race has a vacant seat because of the retirement of long-serving local official Pat Flynn, and so I know you've been involved in local government here for a while now, and I'm sure you've had several encounters with Pat, even back when she was on the select board, and we'll give you a minute or two just to share your thoughts as she steps down from many, many years of service.
Well, Pat's always been gracious and kind, especially to younger people coming up. She always had kind words of encouragement for myself and others. So I wish her well, and I'm thankful for all her many years of service. She did a great job for Falmouth and for the whole Cape, really. She did a lot of good work.
Doug, I'd like to pose this question to you. Knowing that you are a superb listener, now that you are on the Assembly of Delegates, are you finding anything in the other 14 towns where you can draw from for either inspiration of what can happen here in Falmouth, or working collaboratively with others on a broader county-wide basis? What kind of problems are we facing that the Assembly can lead?
Well, we're all facing coastal resiliency challenges, and we're all, focusing squarely on that right now. That's something that we're going to have to get our heads around pretty quickly. And
That's been
yeah,
an interest of yours for some time,
it has.
not
And,
only here, but now Cape-wide.
right. And I'm very encouraged that our new county dredge operator seems to be pretty sharp. And we just allocated $970,000 for hydrographic surveys to make sure that our dredge is effective as it's working its way around the Cape. So I'm very encouraged about the possibility of catching up on our dredging. We're pretty far behind here in Falmouth for a number of different reasons, and one thing after another, but we've got a long list of priorities, and I hope we start to tackle them.
I hope your focus reaps rewards. Thank
And
you.
I will say that I've been talking with some of the delegates recently about affordable housing and the needs. It's a Cape-wide, it's a statewide and nationwide problem, but especially here on the Cape, it's a big problem. The Airbnb rentals are really proliferating. And so I'm hoping that we can be successful in allocating some of the new short-term rental tax to be directly dedicated towards affordable housing. I thought I could do that through the county level, but after speaking with our local elected representatives, senators, and reps, I found out that really a better initiative is probably the local initiative. So I'm hoping that we can do that in Falmouth, and I'm going to be speaking about it tomorrow at the Assembly to encourage other members to do the same at their local level, because we have that local option tax. For Falmouth, it's 5.5%. It's currently undesignated. As you know, 2.75 of the short-term rental tax is allocated definitely for wastewater here on Cape Cod. We haven't really designated the rest of the money. Some of it will go to the state. I think it's about 5%. But the 5.5, I'd like to see some of that dedicated towards affordable housing initiatives, because we've been talking about it for years, but we really got to start investing in it and start to figure out a way to make some headway. I'd like to get accessory apartments to be Cape-wide. I don't know if that's possible. It's going to be a town-by-town thing, but if we negotiate and talk with other towns, they might get the initiative that Falmouth took to make it a by right and no special permit required, because I think that's an important hurdle to get over. And I'd like to see multifamily housing adopted in more towns as well, and get some big apartment buildings. I mean, people don't like the idea of big apartment buildings on Cape Cod, but I think if you plan it and carefully locate them and have some other uses around them, they might not be so offensive. It's the only way to really make effective affordable housing that's, especially for rentals. So that's my,
Well,
that's my
I
objective.
like the initiatives you've taken, and I wish you success.
Thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate it.
Sounds like an ambitious but very important and worthwhile undertaking
Absolutely.
for your policy for the regional government, Doug. And so we wish you the best. I should let our viewers and our candidates know that FCTV will be posting the entirety of the results. And I just did get a report that Town Clerk Michael Palmer is working right now to tabulate the final results, unofficial results here in Falmouth. So what we presented earlier were the early voting results, and now the final election results are being tabulated. And so we hope to have them before we leave this live show, but certainly they will be posted on FCTV's website and on live on television as soon as they are available. So Doug, we really appreciate you joining us tonight. We thank you for your service on the select board and regionally on the Assembly of Delegates. We wish you the best tonight, and the floor is yours if you want to offer any parting thoughts.
I just want to thank my two opposing candidates. We don't know what the results are yet, and that's fine, but I just want to say they're both classy guys. You know, Mike sent me a message this morning, said good luck today, and I said same to you. And Daniel Gesson, he's been a very pleasant guy to talk with, and I look forward to Daniel's participation in future events as well. I mean, he's a young man, but he's got a lot on the ball, and I think he's going to do a lot of work.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear, because one of the things we're seeing nationwide is the emergence of many young people exercising their right and getting to the polls. So that's great news and good to hear. So
It is. I'm very encouraged by that.
Beautiful. Yeah, agreed. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for your service, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay,
That
thank you.
Brown,
Thank you, guys.
Select Board member and candidate for the Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates. And so, Jay, we've had the opportunity to have a nice array of candidates on the show here live tonight. We've also had the opportunity to get some preliminary results from Town Clerk Michael Palmer. And based on what Mike was saying to us earlier, the early voting that's been going on for a number of weeks now has certainly produced fruitful results, because we're seeing around that he estimated when the final tally was put together, 85% turnout here in Falmouth, which is extraordinary. And we've lamented on this show over the years many times on the lack of interest in voter turnout here in Falmouth, but that is not the case tonight, where more than 80% of people made their voices heard and voted.
So Troy, I know that we're running a little bit longer than we had originally anticipated. Do we still have the good fortune of having State Representative Fernandez in the House?
I don't believe that we have State Representative Fernandez. I'll check back at the studio. No, he is not with us tonight. So Representative Fernandez and Vieira were unopposed, as we mentioned earlier, on today's ballot. So
Wonderful.
But we did start off the show, and that's a good way to sort of begin to wrap up, to talk about the fact that despite the fact that they were unopposed, they're still out there working hard every day on the issues that matter to us here in Falmouth. And so what we really saw tonight was a wide variety of candidates from all over the political spectrum, but with one consistent theme, and that is they really care about Cape Cod and Falmouth and recognize the issues that are important to us, from coastal resiliency to the local economy, to helping our small businesses through the pandemic. And it's funny, you know, no matter what your political philosophy was, those issues emerged with just about every candidate. So it really shows that they're in sync and working together, Jay.
Well, you know, that often used phrase, all politics are local, is more true today than ever. We have a lot of issues here on the Cape that we have to address. And I think we have some very qualified and competent people willing to do the heavy lifting. And I'm enthused and excited about the candidates that are running across the board. I know that Doug just made reference to those competitors that he has, and that they've comported themselves well, and that they are worthy competitors. Yes, that speaks well for the folks on Cape Cod stepping up.
Most certainly. And so just to recap the early results here in Falmouth, to run from top to bottom on the race here in Falmouth with early voting results tabulated, former Vice President Joe Biden with a huge lead over incumbent President Donald Trump, Congressman Bill Keating with a very comfortable lead, appearing to be cruising to a victory, certainly here in Falmouth. Of course, Senator Ed Markey. Similarly, in the county commissioner's race, which was contested, 4 candidates for 2 slots, former Commissioner Sheila Lyons and Mark Forrest neck and neck, but well above the pack, the Challenger Abe Kasparian, and a fairly dismal showing for incumbent Commissioner Ron Beatty. And we're still waiting for early results on the race that we just discussed for Assembly of Delegates. So that's really what we have here for results here on election night in Falmouth. The most important result is the one we've spoken about several times, and that is that nearly 9 out of 10 people here in Falmouth who were eligible to vote did vote. And that, Jay, despite the uncertainty and the sometimes dour days of this pandemic, that's something that that we can really be happy about.
And Troy, if you touch on the state Senate race as well. I don't know if you mentioned that one.
The early voting results, I did not, thank you. The early voting results for the state Senate race, that's the Plymouth Barnstable district, currently held by Senator Sue Moran. Moran with a commanding lead over challenger Jay McMahon, 10,652 to 3,658. Again, those were early voting results. The rest of the voting in-person results from today are still being tabulated, but please stay tuned here to FCTV, because as soon as those results are final, they will be posted both on the website and live on FCTV here in Falmouth. I do want to thank again our town clerk, Michael Palmer, who has worked tirelessly over the last several weeks to have efficient and problem-free early voting. He's been at it for many, many years now, but this was an election like no other, and he and his team just performed extremely well. So, Jay, any closing thoughts as we wrap it up here?
Say that again.
I said, do you have any closing thoughts as we get ready to wrap it up here?
Well, yes, I was looking at the time. It's now 9:30, and for all practical purposes, we know where we stand and we know who has prevailed. On the national level, it's going to take a few days. I know I'm not going to stay up any later than necessary tonight, and it'll be a while before the Electoral College does its work as well. I mentioned to you at the beginning, at the top of the ballot, where it has the presidential race, it calls for electors for president. And we have 11 electors in the state of Massachusetts, and those are the people that we're voting for. They in turn will cast their votes, and the Electoral College will then decide who that president, our next president, will be. So that'll be some days from now. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Troy, you follow this pretty closely, I believe the Electoral College meets in December.
I believe that is correct. And of course, the 11 electors here in Massachusetts correspond directly to the number of representatives we have in both houses of Congress. So 9 US representatives, 2 senators results in our 11 electors. And this is a census year. And I've watched the population trends. It doesn't appear, although there is a chance that with the slight population growth in Massachusetts since the last census, we could go back to having 10 representatives as we did for many years. So that's another interesting topic for us to dig into more depth on in a future show, Jay. But you're right, this is a representative democracy, and the Electoral College will ultimately determine the next president.
And I guess my final thought, Troy, is that I'm very pleased to learn that there hasn't been incidents across the country that have created any harm for the electorate.
Right, much like our local election that we've spoken about for a while now here, it does appear that there were minimal incidents, that the election officers, similar to Mike Palmer here in Falmouth, throughout the country, did their job, take it seriously, and have preserved that precious right of ours to vote. So kudos again to Mike Palmer and his team here in Falmouth, but to all election officials nationwide for making this really a banner day in the United States.
So with that, we're at Falmouth Community Television what a great evening. I really enjoyed this time spent with you, Troy. For all of our viewers that are staying with us, thank you so very much for joining us this evening, and we'll see you next time.
Be safe, Falmouth. Thank you. And here's to democracy.